Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Got a different change of shirt this time. I decided to go for a polo shirt for a change. Obviously, I also decided to wear my jumper as well, which I've currently got tied around me, just like ye oldie days. And look at these fucking clouds, man. Looks like it's going to Norwich something awful. But of course, you didn't come here to hear me complain about the weather. Now, there's a lot of talk about today, as there are quite a few subjects I need to cover. But I think the first of these subjects I need to... Stroke number 1, 30 seconds in, that we need to cover. One of those being that a grandmother was recently harassed by Keir the Traitor Starmer's the police force. Or maybe I was right first time. But Greater Manchester Police, well, I say greater in name only, decided to pay this woman a visit, this pensioner, after she expressed opinions that clearly hurt some poor Labour snowflakes' feelings. So they decided, oh, I know, instead of worrying about the burglars that are going around terrorising homes, forget about the terrorists that want to commit jihad in our country, forget about all the nonces out there that are violating our children. No, let's pay her a visit and intimidate and harass her. An elderly woman, one of the vulnerable of our society. Just when you think the scumbag police can't go any lower, they find a way to. And I can guarantee you this much free of charge. They didn't go round there to ask for a free slice of cake and a cup of tea. I honestly find it astonishing that these people that call themselves police, when realistically they're merely thugs in uniform at best, can decide they don't want to go and attend burglaries and what have you, and they'll make up the excuse, oh, we've had so many cuts to the police force. Oh, but when somebody posts something on Facebook, they'll turn up to your house just like that. It really does make you wonder how on earth our police force have got their priorities completely skewed. They wonder why the British public don't trust them. They wonder why they have people like me saying, next time the police get in trouble, don't bother helping them. And it's exactly what we see here with our pensioners being violated and harassed by the police. And isn't it funny, as always, it always seems to be an open season, if you will, on white people. But any other demographic, you'll be lucky if they turn up for that. And our establishment wonder why we say we live in a two-tier police society. Honestly, it's beggars belief how these police even came to work in the force. And while I accept that I wouldn't be able to join the police force, as I'm not exactly the pinnacle of health, am I? Tell you what I did get, though. I got some people telling me that I would make a great boulder for the first Indiana Jones film. Anyway, the police, I wouldn't be able to join them because of my lack of fitness. Somebody's got a flat tire, Jesus. But I would certainly not be able to join the police force. I am certainly not fit enough for that shit, let me tell you. But it's supposed to be important that police read up on their law, read up on what they can and can't do, rather than thinking that because they wear a silly little baseball cap for a police hat and a police uniform, that it gives them the right to boss people around. And we all know that certain police officers, some policemen, decide they want to cop a load of this rather than cop a load of a few bandits along the way. Well, I guarantee you this much. If I ever get nicked, they're certainly going to get a handful, let me tell you. I mean, you gotta laugh, otherwise you cry. But I digress. This is not a funny matter. The fact of the matter is, our pensioners should not be being persecuted like this, put simply. Imagine you're one of those pensioners that you've worked all your life, or you've worked the majority of your life, you've got your pension, you've had your money taken away by Keir the Traitor Starmer to keep you warm, and then to further complicate things, just because you posted one message, whether with good intentions or not, you suddenly have your door kicked in, or you get a knock on the door from the boys in blue. I think stroke number 2, I think most people rather, would be shitting themselves over this. Because understandably, you just want to live out the rest of your life. You don't want to have to worry about whatever you say on the internet. Making sure I don't get killed. Anyway, you shouldn't have to be worrying about what you say on the internet, obviously, unless you're inciting violence or terrorism. Then in that case, yeah, you should be locked up. But most ordinary people, I would have thought, because I have quite a few subscribers, and I suspect other people do too, that are in the older stages of their life, who just want to relax, who are passionate about their country, who love their country, and hate what this country is becoming, quite frankly. And now there's this notion, this worry of, oh, I better watch what I say, or the boys will come round. Keir the traitor Starmer needs to address this. Nobody should be facing political persecution for words on the internet unless it is proven beyond and to the inclusion of every reasonable doubt that you are inciting violence or terrorism. It all reminds me all too much of what happened with Peter Lynch, quite frankly. A loving grandfather, passionate about his stroke number 3, passionate about his country, but locked up because he shouted at the police, and we're currently going at a stroke every 2 minutes. Words are hard today. I've been struggling all fucking day. It's like one person said, I'm having more strokes than a 400 meters freestyle swimmer. But anyway, I digress. There is a bright side of this story, and that story is, the bright side is, that these coppers, or these cunts, scumbags, whatever you want to call them, they've now had their faces plastered all over social media. And if there's one thing that you can count on with the British people, it's we do not forget. And in some cases, we do not forgive either. There are very few people who would be forgiving of wankers like them going out of their way to terrorise the elderly people. Now, that bit done, let's now talk about Tommy Robinson. Now, I have put up a post or two already about Tommy Robinson. I basically said what has been going on realistically. Apparently, there is somebody going out of their way to arrange a protest outside H&P Woodhill prison. But the admin team have come out point blank and said, do not attend this rally. They are saying this because apparently this could damage Tommy Robinson's defence. Now, my opinion on this, and I'm going to be devil's advocate here, I disagree with the notion that we should stay away, quite frankly. However, these are Tommy Robinson's wishes. Therefore, I will respect what he wants. Nothing would please me more than to make sure we grab H&P Woodhill by the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case, both, and be able to put the pressure on them. But the cold, bitter truth is, I feel that Tommy Robinson may be right in all this. As much as I don't want to admit it, and as much as I would feel like putting a lot of pressure on them would actually do the world a good. But if Tommy Robinson has said, do not attend that rally, then his word is gospel. And I will respect that. And I expect everyone else to as well. We will have our vengeance against that establishment. We will see to that. But I guess Tommy wants us to approach this at a different angle. Who's got my protractor? Anyway, we're going to have to approach this at a different angle. We can keep calling this out. We can keep putting out the petition, asking for the release of Tommy Robinson, or at bare minimum, for him to be in better conditions. We can use this opportunity to put Nicola the Monster Marfleet on full blast, and I will be making sure I do that shit. Every single video I post, without fail, from now on, will have that petition. I will see to that. Because she needs to feel the pressure that she rightly deserves to be under right now for what is effectively the torture of Tommy Robinson. It doesn't matter if you're left of politics, right of politics, or centre of politics. What this boils down to is not a matter of left or right, but what is right and what is wrong. And I think a lot of people would agree with me that if a prisoner, a civil prisoner, I will add, is being imprisoned in a category be prison in solitary confinement for a period of longer than 2 weeks, then they are in breach of Article 3. Hey, buddy! They are in breach of Article 3 of the Human Rights Act. And do you know what that is? That's some of the spirit of England. And like I said, he's a Muslim. So anybody wants to sit here and say we're all a bunch of racists, take one of these and swivel, quite frankly. Oh, but of course the mainstream media won't tell you this, that we aren't a bunch of racists. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. And the way I slice it, a lot of these leftoids, these NPCs, they're too busy foaming at the mouth. They're too busy acting like rabid dogs to see the truth that is that Tommy Robinson should be in an open prison. And more importantly, that this video that came out, as I've said before, was released by the Americans first, and if they wanted to pursue a case, they should have gone after them. Of course, they'd still be called out for being the draconian free speech deniers, but at least they'd be heading in the right direction. Whereas here, because this info is already out in the public domain, Tommy shouldn't have even been prosecuted under this. He technically couldn't have committed contempt of court if the information is already out in the public domain. But that's something, of course, again, stroke number 4. The mainstream media do not want to tell you. They would rather focus on, oh, he's got a criminal record, he's got a list as long as your arm, he committed mortgage fraud and all the other bollocks that they like to come out with. And it's just another day in Norwich. It started pissing it down rain. I fucking knew this was going to happen. I fucking knew it. God fucking damn this shit. Just another day in Norwich, folks. Where's my hood? God damn it. There we go. Much better. Where it almost never snows, it almost always rains, and the bus service is shit. Put simply. But anyway, driving off from that, the point I'm trying to make about this whole thing is Tommy Robinson shouldn't even be incarcerated. He certainly shouldn't be in a Category B prison. It should be an open prison, and it should be being treated with a bit more decency and respect. And what they're doing, it doesn't change the fact that they are breaching Article 3 of the Human Rights Act, torture. And even if, let's play devil's advocate again. I really should be his lawyer, I swear to God. But let's play devil's advocate again. Let's say Tommy Robinson hasn't had all of his food taken away. Let's say, for the sakes of argument, he gets 3 square meals a day. Certainly isn't getting this much fucking water, let me tell you. But anyway, let's say he doesn't get that. Oh, sorry, he does get that. Doesn't change the fact that they are torturing him. Okay, I think the rain has just about stopped now. It doesn't change the fact that, as I said, even if they aren't taking away his food, even if he is getting his nutritional needs somehow, they will never be able to argue the toss that Tommy Robinson should not be in prison in solitary confinement for a longer period than 15 days at a time. Therefore, they are left with a very difficult predicament to solve. Now, they can try the excuse of, oh, we want to make sure he's safe all they want, fucking hood. But it doesn't change the fact that he had a whole wing to himself. He has a whole wing to himself. They did the exact same thing when he was in, was it Hull or Onley? It was one of the two, but I digress. They made sure that he was safe. They made sure that he wasn't going to get killed in that prison, because that's what would have happened if he would have been put on the wing with the mostly Muslim populations of HMP Onley. And about bloody time this bus has come along. Thank God for that, because my hood is constantly rebelling against me. Right, thank God we're out of that. Now, they will always be stuck in that predicament, as they can't just say, as I said, safety reasons. That's not going to wash. So, what do? Effectively, they have no defence against this. And I would like people to name one other journalist that's been to jail in the same conditions that Tommy Robinson has been. I will give you a head start. I'll give you 20 years to figure it out. I'll give you a spoiler though. You won't find one. But that's the thing with the left-wingers. They don't argue with facts or the truth. They argue with their opinions and they argue with their emotions. It doesn't matter whether or not you like Tommy Robinson or not, because facts and truth don't care what side you're on. But what they do mean is that those who use them will be making their information ideally in good faith, and they'll be making sure that they are arguing on the right side of history. The bottom line, as far as Tommy Robinson is concerned, is whether or not he's getting the food he needs, which he may well be for all I know, or whether or not he's in there and the contempt of court is justified or not, doesn't change the fact they have breached Article 3. And I will keep saying that until the cows come home, which I hope is going to be no time soon, because at the end of the day, there are some pretty big fucking cows in the houses of treachery. I mean Parliament. Or again, maybe I was right the first time. But now on to what I feel is the most egregious subject at the moment, even worse than Tommy Robinson, I feel, because we already know about Tommy Robinson. Because this sets a dark precedent for two-tier justice and two-tier policing. And Dan Wootton has quite aptly put it well enough himself. Don't tell us there is no such thing as two-tier justice or two-tier policing. Because it turns out Mike Amesbury, the guy who assaulted a pensioner through basically beating them, so battery basically, he was sentenced. He was sentenced to 10 weeks in prison. Half on tag. Yeah, I am just as livid as you lot are, quite frankly. 5 weeks in prison for assaulting a pensioner? Maybe add a couple more zeros on the end of those weeks, and maybe you'd be able to somewhat justify it. In fact, no, I think you'd need to add at least 3 or 4 zeros on the end of that in order to justify that shit. Because you cannot categorically go out of your way to say that assaulting someone is a lesser crime than posting messages on Facebook or Twitter or any other social media. That would effectively be like if somebody went out of their way to say that murder isn't as bad as jaywalking. Of course, we all know that's not true. Murder's one of the worst crimes you can commit. But that is the precedent that's been set. Thank you. Oh, dearie me. 10 weeks for Mike assaulting Amesbury. But Peter Lynch, God rest his soul, was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in prison for shouting at police. I dare a leftoid now to tell me there is no such thing as two-tier justice or two-tier policing. I fucking dare you. There is no shot that anybody worth even the slightest grain of salt can sit here and point blank tell me that there is no such thing as two-tier policing and two-tier justice. But of course, pointing that out, as we all know, and I'll try my best to impersonate Keir the traitor Starmer, that makes us all far right. Because that's obviously what Keir the traitor Starmer thinks. So it must be true, right? Bollocks. The cold bitter truth is, which Keir the traitor Starmer won't want to admit, is that this is the biggest prime example of two-tier policing we have had put on national news. Well, that and of course all the murders and the rapes of the women and children and all that shit, who are basically being let off with basically cautions or suspended sentences, which of course the mainstream media is not going to tell you. But it is irrefutable evidence that we no longer live in a fair and just society. And I suspect the only reason he's even been given a 10-week sentence is because he's white. Let's face it, if it was a Muslim MP, he would have been let off just like that. And that is not me speculating, I know that. I can make that argument in good faith, considering how Keir the traitor Starmer has already admitted to us how he said he will do everything he can to protect the Muslim community. And that includes the shit that's going on with Zara Sultana, who is more dried up than an oasis in a desert. Now, for what shall I have for tonight's meal? I've got a choice of 4 really. Cheesy harissa nanisa, peri ragu al forno, sticky curry paneer burger, or Cumberland sausages and mash. Now that is a conundrum for me. One I'll have to figure out myself. Anyway, back on point. The point is that people like Peter Lynch shouldn't have even been sent to prison in the first place. But because he was, and I suspect in a predominantly Muslim-based prison, I suspect... I've actually forgotten what I was going to say. Matt.exe has stopped working. Please restart. I suspect this is part of their plan. To basically get ordinary people like me and you into these kinds of jails, where our will to live will be sorely sapped from all the prosecution and persecution we will get from the Islamic community inside those prisons. Because the vast majority of these prisons are predominantly controlled by Islam. That's why I've said in the past, and some people will even come out and say, you basically have 2 choices. You either convert to Islam, or you die. It's as simple as that. What's the greatest weapon they have against us? Using the legal system and the Islamic community to make us all, what's the word? Oh yes, disappear. Again, the mainstream media don't want to tell you that. But Islam is highly intolerant of Western society. Their third world shithole death cult considers us as kafir or kafar or kafuffle or whatever you want to call us. This is not my words. This is their own damn Quran preaching it. Their Quran preaches that it is perfectly okay to wage jihad against the West, basically, and to take white women as slaves. And that it's perfectly okay to stone homosexuals to death. And let me be clear, I do not think that's acceptable at all. I mean, yes, there are some things that need to be worked out with homosexuality and LGBTQ and all that shit, but we need to do it in a rational and respectful manner. And I think stoning people to death is about as respectful as spitting at someone's grave. Why is it that Amesbury is allowed 5 weeks in prison as his sentence, while we have people who shout at police being locked up for nearly 3 years? How is it acceptable that there are people like him walking free, yet some people who are just taking recreational drugs in their own home, not harming anyone else, they could get worse sentences? Somebody make that make sense. One thing is for certain, at least Amesbury won't be an MP anymore, because you can't be an MP if you have a criminal record. Thankfully, I won't have that issue if I become an MP. But what it boils down to is not me. It boils down to, what do we do as far as administering fair justice is concerned? We need a robust system. We need a system that punishes people proportionately to the crime they've committed. If you've gone into Greggs and stole a sausage roll, for example, I'm sure a fine would do, basically, like, I don't know, 10 times the value of the goods, something like that. Like, even I could come up with laws on the fly that would be fundamentally better and fairer justice that would be like, It's a fair cop. I'm getting punished, quite rightly, but I don't think it's too harsh. But with Keir the traitor Starmer, there is only one penalty that applies to the indigenous British people. Prison. And I asked Keir the traitor Starmer, do you think prison is an appropriate sentence for you and your war crimes against Tommy Robinson? Do you think that prison is an appropriate sentence for someone like you who is basically trying to get the Ukraine and Russia war to keep going? Even though Donald Trump is actively working with Putin to try and get some kind of a peace deal on the table. That goes directly to the fucking Prime Minister. Because there are a lot of people who would love nothing more than to see you walk into that courtroom, have that judge sit on his little podium, and then bring the gavel down as he sends your sorry ass to prison, Keir the traitor Starmer. And I certainly think there are enough crimes beneath your belt that could send you there. Breaking lockdown rules, fraud, war crimes, breaching human rights, just to name a few. How well do you think that's going to go down in court? You hear that? Silence. You could literally hear a pin drop. You know why? Because he knows full fucking well what he's done, he should be in prison. And as far as Tommy Robinson's concerned, as I've said before, I don't agree with the idea that we shouldn't be heading up to HMP Woodhill and reminding those people inside governing that prison that he needs to be treated with dignity and respect, not treated like an animal in a cage. I don't agree, frankly, that we should be avoiding Woodhill. But I will respect what Tommy Robinson said. Because if he says that's what he wants, then that is what he gets. But Nicola Marfleet, mark my words and mark them well. There will come a time when the British people get the justice they deserve against you. Just like they'll get justice against Keir the traitor Starmer, and Mike assaulting Amesbury, and Ricky Cutthroats Jones, and all the other traitors who sit there in the houses of treachery plotting against the British people. We will have justice, one way or another. And the way I see it, if it takes a year to prosecute you, if it takes 5 years or 10 years to prosecute you, we the British people will go the whole 9 fucking yards to see you charged for breaching Tommy Robinson's human rights. Mark my words. Because we the people have had enough. We the people are not going to sit idly by anymore while scumbags like you, Nicola, live in luxury or live in your little seat of power while you make other people suffer for who they are rather than what they've done. Karma will come. It comes for all of us, the good and the bad, and even the ugly. And you better watch out, Nicola Marfleet, because you may find the bad and the ugly come for you.